left last week off by saying, I am sure there will be something we can talk about this week. And boy, was I right. Firstly, just like last week, there's been another coaching scandal. This one's gone a little bit further. John Gruden has been fired for emails that were discovered in the investigation of the Washington football team's front office. What do you have to say?
Miles, I got to give you credit, man. When you're right, you're right. After last weekend with Urban Meyer, you and I talked, what could possibly happen to, take this to another level? Well, credit to Vegas and the Raiders for giving us just that. Like you said, John Gruden out as the head football coach with the Las Vegas Raiders after those emails surfaced. Obviously, this is a big shock to everyone in the NFL and everyone in football.
We were messaging back and forth through the game on Monday. And when Schefter popped up on the screen and made the announcement, I truly was shocked. My team was getting destroyed at the time, and I was still just like, what just happened? I was shocked. I did not believe what I was hearing. Because you always hear, John Gruden from Hard Knocks a few years ago, real team coach guy, knock on wood if you're with me. Like, he just seems like a nice guy. He seems like a player's coach. He seems, like a nice person, but after hearing the comments he made, okay, and there's a few stipulations I would like to make. What he said was terrible. Those are terrible things to say. Those people are dealing with so many things. You can't say those derogatory terms about anybody. Is just not okay. Second of all, though, it's just kind of odd to me that now we're in the business of pulling stuff up from like 10 years ago. And while I agree maybe we should have looked into him closer in the beginning so we're not in this position where we pull something out 10 years ago, because I'm sure, I'll be honest with you, I think a majority of coaches, GMs, and owners in the league, if we start digging through their emails, we're going to find the football culture as it has developed is not what it used to be. It has developed a lot in the last 10 years, and we will find something on almost every coach that is equal or worse than what was said by John Gruden. That does not abstain him from what he did say. I'm just saying that we're jumping a fine line.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So for me, I'm not going to talk about, what Gruden's punishment should have been versus what it was, or what he said versus, how it's perceived or what he meant or his press conference or any of that. My big topics or my big thoughts on this issue is more of what you've said. I've got three things that kind of jump out at me. This investigation into Washington that's been going on for a few years, they've had these emails for a while. This is not brand new information the NFL has had. So why did the NFL wait till now to release it? There's something weird going on there. Second, it's come out that the NFL had been releasing these emails publicly one at a time while in communication with the Raiders to try and force the Raiders to make a decision to get rid of Gruden, right? They didn't release it all to the public and let public opinion and the Raiders make a decision. They didn't give Vegas time to make a decision. They basically forced Vegas's hand, say, hey, you're going to get rid of Gruden, or every day there's going to be more and more bad publicity. Now, I don't think that's right personally for the NFL to do that. I think that's acting from a place of false morality. You can say Gruden needs to leave as a head coach and say he's not the right person to leave. That's certainly an opinion a lot of people have. But to act in that way as the league executive office shows false leadership in my mind. It shows poor leadership, shows no leadership, right? You're pushing an organization, a franchise, to make a decision because for whatever reason, right or wrong, the NFL wanted to get rid of John Gruden as head football coach of the Las Vegas Raiders.
Absolutely, and I agree. And the more damning part of all of this, who was sending those emails to? Who was he saying that to? Bruce Allen, former president of the Washington football team. Why are we not hearing more about the Washington organization? That's been the story before all of these things have come out. Why are we not condemning Washington more for the nude photo shoots of the cheerleaders that were allegedly in these emails, for the comfortability level for Gruden to send these topics back and forth? why is Daniel Snyder still allowed to own a team? And it all comes down to a comment that I read. It is a big difference when you sign the checks versus when you receive the checks. If you're signing the checks, this is the big corporate America giant that we deal with. When you have the power, you are out of touch from punishment. And I don't think that is fair. I think that is really a bigger issue that is completely unrelated to the Gruden issue, but is one that we have to acknowledge.
Absolutely. Right. And the first thing that jumped out in my mind is they announced, I think it was last Sunday, that the Super Bowl halftime show would be headlined by Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem. Now, you and I both grew up in the early 2000s. A lot of people have known Dr. Dre and Eminem's lyrics are far from kid friendly. You know, Eminem himself has been accused of a lot of the things John Gruden's being accused of now. But the NFL is hyping up this show and promoting it because they think that's good for business. They think that's good for viewership. They think that's going to drive up some revenue for the individual franchise in the league as a collective. Right. Everything, like you said, everything the NFL is doing it from the perspective of the owners. And for whatever reason, a group of owners in the league office decided John Gruden needed to go. Having John Gruden as the head coach of the Raiders was a problem. And I agree with you. I think Washington is behind it. As much as we, disparage Washington, they're one of the top 10 most valuable NFL franchises. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They're in a competitive market. They haven't been good for a while, but the fact is they are. They have a very loyal and long-term fan base. They've won 3 Super Bowls. They're one of the earlier NFL franchises. They've been around since the 1930s. They have a lot of power and clout in the league office. And frankly, I think it came to a head when you had Goodell in the league office against Dan Snyder in Washington about all the issues that you talked about going on with that franchise. And Snyder said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a head on a silver platter because I've got one right here. And I guarantee you there's some guys in the NFL office that don't like Gruden to begin with. Snyder or whoever at Washington, I'm not saying it's Snyder, I'm not saying it's not, offered up Gruden's head on a silver platter. And Gruden, to his detriment, has sent a lot of immature and inappropriate emails, put himself in that position. Snyder offered up those emails, and the NFL took their sacrificial lamb, and they got rid of Gruden when really, just like you said, a lot of the blame, if not all of it, should fall on the Washington organization and their owner, Dan Snyder.
Exactly. And, just some talking points. The Raiders may have wanted to get rid of him anyways. I have some notes here. So Gruden signed a 10-year, $100 million contract in 2018. He became the Raiders head coach. He has stayed for 3 years. In that 3 and 5 year, 5 games, he has a record of 22-31, losing record, no playoff appearances, and no winning seasons. It's not like he's been, great so far, and the team has been losing steam this year already. I can see them wanting him on board, trying to get him to somehow find a scapegoat clause to get him out of his contract. Anyways, but it's just, this all stems back to we're setting standards. We're saying it is not okay for this level of person, the coach, John Gruden, to do and say these things. And it's not. I agree, it is not okay to do and say these things. But we're saying just don't look over here at what the Redskins have going on in their front office that we have all known about before all of this happened. There will be no punishment. Yeah, they fired some management people, but the root of the problem, there will be no punishment or no reparations for what has happened on this side. And I just think that is when you are willing to sacrifice morality for business, that is when things can get to the way that they are now.
Yeah, and I think it's not even for business, for just revenue or top line or bottom line growth. I think it's a PR. It's a PR battle that the NFL thinks they have to fight, and they don't. It's almost bizarre. They've supported, right? We talk about one of our earlier shows, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has not been suspended yet. Now, obviously, he hasn't been charged or arrested. He's facing some serious allegations, but he hasn't been arrested or indicted, and he's still an active player in the NFL, right? So the NFL is very selective on who they enforce these rules. I mean, they suspended Tom Brady for 4 games. He was the face of the league. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of players have done a lot worse things than just mean messages or mean emails or mean tweets or anything like that. And the NFL office has kept them in the game and involved. It's very strange. It's a PR battle they're fighting, which I think is hurting the fans. To be totally honest here, a lot of what Goodell in the front office has done the last few years has been bad for the game. Everyone hates the taunting penalties. These roughing the passer, these unnecessary roughness penalties, they are hurting the game. Everybody hates them. You know, we talk every time there's a big hit, what's the first thing we all do? Where's the flag? Where's the
Oh yeah,
flag?
we've been trained to think that now. So
It's so much of what Goodell has done is bad for the game of football itself. I think they're focusing so much on what they think the brand of the NFL should be. I think the NFL's lost its way a little bit here, and I think the blame falls on Goodell. Right? They've lost what matters to football fans, and it's not the shield, it's not the NFL logo, it's the game of football. And I think that's what the NFL office has lost track of as they try and fight all these different PR battles. This is one of them. This is the latest one. There's been a lot of them the past few years. They've neglected the issues that really matter with the game of football, and instead they've been focusing on winning, you know, battles in the Twitter sphere and the Facebook sphere and the Instagram sphere, just to get enough likes or retweets or posts. So that way people on ESPN or ABC or NBC or Fox or whoever don't say mean things about Roger Goodell. Right.
absolutely, we're sacrificing the game of football for this.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just Gruden, right? And I think you and I agree on this 100%. We're seeing it expand into other things, you know, whether it's the penalties, whether it's, you know, different rules and different restrictions they put on players and certain things like that. You know, the different advertising campaigns and things out of left field that seem to come out that the NFL talks about and says they support. It is extremely against the game of football, because anything that's not demonstrating playing the game of football is against it, right? The NFL is a professional football organization, but they focus on things that are outside of professional football. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, think of any business. If you sell like socks, right? Why would you worry about, well, what do people think of when they are running outside and it's windy? You know, it just doesn't make any sense. It's outside your realm. Stay in your lane, understand your business. And the NFL seems to have lost that.
Yeah, I watch football for the most part, not lately, but I watch football to relax. I watch football to get away from it all. I watch football because I enjoy it. I love to have watched it my whole life. I love to watch football. I don't want all of this outside drama to be involved in what I'm watching. I don't want all of these storylines of this guy said this guy said that. That's where you as a business take care of that in-house personally. We don't need to send everything out to the media. We can take, it's like businesses. You don't hear if the guy that works at the McDonald's down the street said something mean to a customer, we don't have a press conference about it. You fire him and you move on. You know, we don't need to, like you said, stake these PR battles all the time. Just do what you have to do, make it right, and then move on. And I think we're losing sight of that.
Yeah, it's, you know, and as much as John Gruden is in the wrong by acting immaturely and unprofessionally, even though he wasn't an employee of the NFL at the time or an employee of the Raiders, he was acting as, you know, as an announcer on ESPN, and he was doing some of his other side things. I think right now, as much as, you know, I love football, I see the game kind of tilting kind of on a little bit of an edge here, right? Whether it's these new rules, whether it's all of the, you know, digging up old emails and criticizing former players and coaches and all this stuff coming about. I think it's really hurting the game. You know, I think people, like you said, I love football. Like you said, you love football. We love watching the game. We love watching the players and the athletes and the teams do amazing things, you know, on Sundays and Thursdays and Mondays. And, you know, that's just a special part of, you know, our culture and our life that, you know, you and I and a lot of other people really enjoy and really appreciate what these players and coaches are able to do week in and week out. We don't want to deal with what the NFL, the executive corporate office of the NFL, you know, tries to do with outside the game. And I think that's hurting the game and it's hurting the players. And frankly, it needs to stop because it's becoming a distraction from some amazing things. I mean, we're talking about what the NFL and John Gruden is right now, instead of, you know, and we're going to get there, of course, but instead of talking about the amazing things Josh Allen has done or the amazing things that Lamar Jackson did, you know, on Monday night, or Dallas's start, or Justin Herbert's growth, or, this and that, or, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Instead of talking about the players that make this game great, we're talking about this. And
Yeah.
it frustrates me. I know it frustrates you. It frustrates a lot of fans. And, I think the NFL, and it starts with Roger Goodell, really needs to understand that and start moving on and doing a better job of managing the game.
And you mentioned we're going to get to everything, but the only drama I want to hear is about all the missed kicks from last weekend. Okay? That's all I want to hear about.